Dude, this is huge news. ICC seeks arrest warrants for Hamas and Israeli leaders. Bro, fucking based. I do love, by the way, that, like, you can't, like, do the whole, like, Hamas and Israel are, like, equally bad thing, you know? Like there's no argument to be had of whether, like, one side's worse, one side's better, one side, like, they're equally bad or whatever. It's just like, nope, arrest warrants for both sides' leaders because both sides have perpetuated atrocities and war crimes. Good shit. Love that. That you also see, by the way, the heads of state of Israel are getting fucking furious about more UN countries recognizing Palestine as, like, a valid state. Like, they just simply recognizing Palestine has sent them fucking off the handle. Like, actually. Dude. Actually good news.
We are following this breaking news. The International Criminal Court moments ago announced it is seeking arrest warrants for the leaders of Hamas for the October 7th terrorist attack in Israel, and also seeking arrest warrants for the political and military leadership of the State of Israel. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, Hamas.
Yep, both sides have broken the Geneva Convention, so it makes sense. Like, the IDF has provably caused the deaths, like, killed thousands upon thousands, tens of thousands of Palestinians. Like, Hamas actively targets civilian populations and has killed civilians and butchered them. So it's like, yeah, it's time to bring out the guillotine.
Hamas's top political and military leaders also being sought for crimes against humanity. All named just now. CNN.
Do we do, like, giant public executions for this? Like, should we build, like, I think we should build, like, a giant offshore oil barge that can accommodate, like, 1 million people, that we host, like, the big multinational executions at, where, like, people who are so heinous in their acts against humanity get just, like, publicly executed in international waters. Would you guys go to that? Would you get tickets to that Burning Man? They should just call it Burning Man, but it'd be like a very different kind of celebration.
Chief international anchor Christiane Amanpour has this exclusive interview with the special prosecutor at the International Criminal Court, Karim Khan, who announced it to her just moments ago, and she's joining us right now from The Hague. Christiane, tell us more about what you've learned.
Well, Kate, we broke this earlier on CNN some 20 minutes ago. It is an incredibly important turning point in this war since Hamas invaded parts of Israel, slaughtered so many people, took so many hostages, and in the aftermath, since Israel went to war against Hamas and has caused so many civilian casualties, and what international officials say starvation and famine also imposed. So these form the basis of the ICC charges. And
you know what's really frustrating about, like, the way Israel is handling this? It feels as though they have a PR team actively working to, like, ensure that no matter how many atrocities they commit, they can always nitpick about whether or not what they're doing is technically genocide. Because on one hand, the enemy that they're fighting has declared war on them. Hamas has declared war against Israel. And Israel has officially declared war against Hamas, you know, in response to the October 7th thing. Israel does, though this isn't exactly ideal, allow aid to Gaza, for example. I'm not making excuses for Israel, to be very clear here. I am expressing my frustration that Israel walks a tightrope where it's been very hard to pin them as a nation, foreign policy-wise, as, like, genocidal, because they have allowed things like aid from the U.S. into Gaza. They have provided Gaza with power for a very long time, and water and sewage and all that. They've offered the option for these things to come back conditionally. And it's like, okay, maybe they don't mean any of this, but it makes it really hard if you're, like, debating a Zionist to say they are doing a ruthless unilateral genocide when they can start bringing up these, like, what feel like almost specifically done things to defend themselves, right? Like, it doesn't feel like they did these things because they don't want to be doing a genocide. It feels like they do these things so it's harder to call what they're doing a genocide. But, like, in action, it really does feel like they're doing a genocide, doesn't it? It's completely understandable why you'd call it that because, you know, to your eyes, to my eyes, too, it looks about indistinguishable, you know? But they do these things specifically so if you try to call it that, they can get you lost in the weeds arguing about it. So just don't do it. As I've said a million times, if you're going to argue with a Zionist and have a debate about it, talk about specific atrocities and make them defend or bite the bullet on specific horrible things that Israel has done or caused to happen, which is obviously what they're doing here. They're actually holding them accountable for specific crimes against humanity that have been done.
They are now seeking warrants, seeking arrest warrants that will have to be approved by a panel of independent judges.
How does this even get followed through on, though, right? Like, what if Israel just says, no? And then, of course, Hamas can just say, no. Like, what happens if both sides say, no, we refuse to be arrested?
Here, I am at the ICC based on these things that I told you. And here are the crimes. There are some 8 crimes, charges alleged on both sides, starting with Hamas because of the timeline, obviously. October 7th was what Hamas did. Here's what he told me.
No, guys. Israel let in 1 granola bar. This means it's not genocide. Well, if it was just as simple as that, Circuit Dog, I would call bullshit on that argument, and it wouldn't really be a strong one that, like, Zionists could use to get you lost in the weeds. The problem is, it is, like, the IDF soldiers themselves distribute much of that aid and transport much of that aid. And in many cases, it has been, like, definitively shown so far that in cases where aid hasn't made it to the destinations it was supposed to, it's because civilians, like, ransack aid trucks because they're dying, obviously. And so before the trucks can make it to their destinations, they get, like, rinsed by the people. They get roadblocked and everything gets taken. So, you know, it's not a perfect situation, but, like, obviously, it doesn't feel genuine. Like, the IDF doesn't genuinely want to help these people. It's not the vibe I get. But they have videos and evidence and factually, like, IDF soldiers driving aid through Gaza to people to receive that aid to Palestinians. And they do that, it feels like, so that there's, like, fundamental check boxes unchecked for what qualifies as a genocide, right?
We're here at the ICC. You are today announcing that you are applying.
You really think Interpol and UN forces could just, like, march into Israel and march into Gaza and just, like, take the people they have warrants for? Like, sorry, nation, we're here to search you and arrest someone who is a resident here. You will allow us to do this. Like, how? Like, you realize Israel is a nation so insane that they publicly have something called the Samsonian option, that it does exist, that they will follow through with, but they make public to scare people away from actually challenging them. The Samsonian option is a reference to Samson in the Bible, who, when finally, like, on his last leg, with the last bit of his power before, you know, dying, toppled an entire cathedral on top of his enemies. And of course he was Jewish, you know, Samson. Dropped an entire palace on top of the Philistines that had enslaved him. Of course he'd killed thousands of them first, but, you know, that's neither here nor there. But the whole idea is that if I'm going to die, then everybody else, not cathedral, you know what I mean, the like, big building. If I'm going to die, every one of my enemies is going to die with me. Mutual destruction. And so Israel says they'll do the Samsonian option and just nuke the world if they are about to lose. Like, the world doesn't get to continue existing if Israel is not in it, is pretty much the public policy position, like, first and foremost, that everyone knows about Israel. Like, they have the means, we gave them the nukes, now it's at the point where if, like, Israel isn't going to exist anymore, if they're genuinely under threat, they'll go with the Samsonian option and destroy the world. Because you gotta remember, the religious justification for Israel is that Jesus Christ can't return until the Jews have the Holy Land again. Israel is that. Like, obviously, that's a big part of why there's a lot of U.S. support for taking more land through the settlement building, and, like, taking of settlements and whatnot. But, like, Yeah, the idea is that like the God's chosen people in the Bible, it's the Jewish people, need to hold the Holy Land, which is like all of that like strip of area, from like Egypt to the it's like it's Egypt, the Red Sea, and then the West Bank to the West Bank, right? Like all that area is like the Holy Land, pretty much. Is there more? I think there's more to the Holy Land too, as well. Yeah, it goes further north too. Yeah, Jordan River too. Yeah, all along that. Yeah, okay. It's a big area. It's a big area. But you guys get what I mean. You guys get what I mean. Yeah, do you think we'll get a cool like Fallout or Adventure Time style nuclear apocalypse if Israel goes nutty and goes the Samsonian option?
Applying for arrest warrants for top military and political leadership in the Israel-Gaza war since the October 7th events. First and foremost, explain to me exactly what you're asking for and who you are charging.
Today, Christian, we've applied for warrants to the pretrial chamber of the International Criminal Court in relation to 3 individuals that are Hamas members. Sinwar, who's in charge on the ground.
That's Yahya Sinwar?
Absolutely. Daif, who's in charge of the Al-Qasim Brigade. And Hania, who's one of their political bureau based in Doha.
What are the charges?
It's really upsetting to me, low-key, that like the way the left handles the discussion of the Israel-Palestine issue is such that if I criticize Hamas, I genuinely feel afraid that people are going to, en masse, interpret it as, like, defense of Israel. Like, Hamas literally did October 7th. I've seen the videos of what they did to some of those women, like those girls that were at that, the festival. Like, their bodies were butchered and on the back of trucks. Like, I've seen those videos that came out, like, an hour after it happened. It was fucking horrifying. But, like, Hamas is evil. Like, Hamas is a genocidal, anti-Semitic, like, terror organization. And they run Gaza. Like, they are a problem. There does need to be some form of military action taken against Hamas. And so what Israel wants you to believe and wants people to just blindly accept is that the only way to fight Hamas is with enormous civilian casualties. That not only that, but hey, also, maybe, you know, these civilians kind of deserve it, because didn't they elect Hamas into power? And there is shaky truthfulness to these arguments, at best. And at worst, it's just outright defense of, like, unilateral, like, undiscriminatory attacks on civilian populations and infrastructure that's resulted in countless dead children. I think, what is it, like 35,000 dead Palestinian civilians at this point? Like, isn't it over 32 or 33,000 now? Last I checked, it was 30,000, but it's been weeks. The count can't have slowed down, right?
The charges are extermination, murder, taking of hostages, rape and sexual assault in detention. So these are...
Yeah, he's describing the stuff that the that Hamas does to their hostages. Like the Israeli women and children that they captured, many of them, well, most of them, all of them, maybe, were brutally raped. Like, brutally so. I guess there might have been some that weren't. I know there was at least one person who I'm pretty sure wasn't, like, raped or brutalized, and there was, like, a big televised, like, Hamas needs to look good, like, prisoner transfer. And Israel, I don't think even gave any prisoners to Hamas in exchange. It was literally just that. But yeah, no, Hamas, like, they've like raped and murdered countless children, and some of them are actually Palestinian children too, believe it or not. You know, Hamas are actually really nasty. They're bad hombres. You know, they're not good guys. They're kind of not even good to the people of Gaza. So it's like, you know, they're not. I think it's important that while we focus our discussion primarily on Israel, because they're the ones that are capable of doing the most harm, I really worry about how much, like, unintentional, like, soft defense of Hamas it feels like is being done. Like, if you criticize Hamas, you will get someone who will say, both sidesing it. And it's like, Excuse me, Hamas is not the Palestinian people, for starters. And I could go on, but I'm not gonna.
To the key crimes that are alleged to have been committed by these three individuals, the world was shocked on the 7th of October when people were ripped from their bedrooms, from their homes, from the different kibbutzim in Israel. And people have suffered enormously, and we have a variety of evidence to support the applications that we've submitted to the judges.
You have also issued warrants against the top political and military leadership of the government of the State of Israel.
We've applied for warrants. Of course, the judges must determine whether or not to issue them, but we've applied today. We'll apply for warrants for Prime Minister Netanyahu and also Minister of Defense Gallant.
Damn. So they're just going for the top of both totem poles.
For the crimes of causing
the heads of both snakes.
Extermination, causing starvation as a method of war, including the denial of humanitarian relief supplies, deliberately targeting civilians in conflict.
So
I don't know, because, like, once again, that's been one of the things that Israel's used as a way of keeping these kind of warrants from being approved. So the Israel warrants haven't been approved yet. They've been applied for, but the warrant that has been approved, the warrants that have been for the top dogs at Hamas. But for Israel, not yet approved, and may not be approved, to be clear. Israel plays their game really carefully. Like I said before, they actively provide the support, the lines for aid and support to be brought to the Palestinian people in Gaza. So it's like, even if it's pithy, even if it's not ideal, even if they're literally a few blocks over bombing a children's hospital, it's like, yeah, but we're providing support, though. This is a military operation. It's a very small civilian population with a bad military group. What can we do? Ooh, give us more billions of dollars. And then they'll be like, oh, Israel. Who else but Israel? And then they'll send them on their way and give them maybe a slap on the wrist.
what you're hearing is the layout of the crimes. So it is crimes against humanity and war crimes. And in addition, the prosecutor has said, just so that everybody understands, that he has issued this request for arrest.
I mean, they were told to follow special provisions, so they're following them. No, Heavy Gretel. Like, imports of everything had to go through Israel to get to Gaza for the last, like, few decades. Every bit of food, the water, the electricity, all of it was provided by Israel. That's not a good thing, but the fact that it was provided is an argument used unanimously by Zionists to say, if we wanted to genocide these people in some open-air prison, why wouldn't we just literally starve them out and not give them any water or electricity? And the fact is, if the goal is genocide, they're very cleverly and carefully doing it in a way that, like, gives them political distance from the exact definition of a genocide, a state perpetuated genocide. And this is not me defending them. This is literally them actively and maliciously doing things that specifically preclude them from meeting the definition of genocide by many standards. We'll have to see what the ICC decides. If the ICC decides that Netanyahu and the foreign defense minister, I think it was, are culpable here, then I will eat my words. I will eat my word. I will eat a shoe on stream. Not really, but I'll eat my words. But I do feel that, like, all this shit, the stuff that looks friendly and nice that Israel does, I have a feeling it's done for situations like this, for that plausible deniability.
Warrants based on the reasonable belief on grounds that these are criminal offenses that can meet a conviction standard. It's not just reasonable grounds that they could go to trial. This is higher, the standard of conviction based on the evidence that he and his teams have collected so far and that are in the public domain.
Christian, Sarah here. A couple of things. One, I wanted to ask you just about the unprecedented nature that this is, I think, the first time that a democratic government has been brought under these potential warrants, and how they've gone about gathering evidence when getting into Gaza often is very, very difficult.
So on the first issue, I put that to Prosecutor Karim Khan, obviously, and I said this is the first time that this has happened in a democratic situation when we're talking about the Israeli side. And he said that is true, And if Israel were to take this up, or had taken it up, the judicial system, when we first warned about this months ago, then they would have jurisdiction. If they choose to do so now, they will have jurisdiction. So that's clear. He said that they have not chosen to do such a thing, even though, as he said to me, and he said it publicly, that when I warned at all these international conferences, when I warned in my face-to-face meetings with Israeli officials that this is the warning, aid is not getting through, starvation is setting in, people are dying, that don't complain if then my office does something about it if you don't. So that's on that issue. And then on the other issue of...
Dude, how fucking cool would it be if they managed to successfully get a warrant for Netanyahu? Like how historically precedent-setting it would be for the ICC to successfully get Netanyahu in court and tried on, like, crimes against humanity for Israel's handling of the conflict against Hamas. Like, that would be so fucking precedent-setting. Like, no one could really argue with you if you called it genocide at that point, when, like, Netanyahu has been tried by the ICC at The Hague. Like, literally brought to The Hague to be tried. Like, you can't... Like, you're really grasping for straws if you say it's not a genocide then, if they manage to get this warrant and get him there. Oh, man, I need to see it. I need it to happen. I need it! I need it!
Of evidence. Part of it is in the public domain. Part of it is what's been reported over and again. Part of it is what's been said. And I'm talking about Israel now. Obviously, we're going to get to the Hamas thing. It's important to know that in the prosecutor's timeline, in his indictment sheet... And
no, Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, they don't like submit to this. This is not like an organization that they're beholden to, from my understanding. Obviously Russia is not friendly with the UN. I know that like China probably isn't. Is China good with the UN? Maybe they are. Maybe? But China's friendly with Russia. But China also is... But no, China split off from the US and a lot of Western stuff because that's a big part of why they're not part of our space station anymore. They made their own space station. So I guess our situation with China is probably just too complicated to summarize because, like, in many ways we've disconnected from China, like our space program and stuff. And in some ways, like, China's still, like, in the UN, I guess? Yeah, okay. So maybe not... Maybe Xi Jinping would be a potential... target of the ICC. Putin, I think, is untouchable. Not beholden to them. Yeah, the whole, like, Taiwan situation, Uyghur genocide, like Hong Kong, like it's just there's a lot that you could use to suggest China and its leaders need to be tried at The Hague.
You'll see on the press release, they listed the crimes that they are charging Hamas with on October 6th.
The ICC is still working with Zelensky and NATO leaders to get an arrest warrant for Putin. There you go, guys. I mean, like, do the people just have to, like, say, you know what? Let's just, like, go storm Putin's palace and give him to the UN? Like, would that be how it goes?
7th, and we'll get to that in a second. But since you're asking me about the unprecedented nature of a democracy being so charged, they go back to Yoav Gallant, because don't forget, Yoav Gallant, Defense Minister of Israel, has also been charged, and they, among others, see as intent his...
Putin has had an ICC warrant since March 2023. So hopefully they get him. You know, like maybe he's flying a helicopter over the Atlantic Ocean for some reason or the Pacific Ocean at some point, and like some jets, some American or I don't know, Canadian jets just scramble out to get his ass, and they politely escort him to Hawaii for his arrest. That would go crazy.
His statement on October the 9th, we are imposing a complete siege. There will be no electricity, no food, no water, no fuel. Everything is closed. We are fighting human animals, and we will act accordingly. Netanyahu, October 13th. We will exact a price that will be remembered by...
Putin is not beholden to the ICC. Putin is, like, beholden to a gun to his head, though. If there's ever, like, a point where Putin's, like, traveling internationally in a plane or helicopter, and the U.S. thinks it can, like, get jets surrounding that fucking plane, or like NATO thinks it can get jets surrounding that plane and forcing it to land in NATO territory for the arrest of Putin, you better fucking believe they'd go for it. Yeah, that'd be the way to do it, by the way. Like, I think that would be how you do it. You have to catch him while he's traveling by air in a situation where it's like, do what we want or the plane blows the fuck up. Like, we've got jets all around your private plane, Putin. Like, follow us and land at this, like, Polish airport for your arrest, or we're gonna blow your plane out of the sky. Like, that would be the way to arrest Putin. That's how the ICC would have to get his ass, I think. And if they do, that's how it'll happen. That's my bet. I'm putting money on it now. If they get Putin, it won't be a coup. It won't be like a revolution. It won't be like a military action taken on his land. It will be they got Putin while he was on a helicopter or a plane. They got like jets and drones surrounding his ass and like hostaged his ass into landing in NATO territory for his arrest and trial for the ICC. Yeah, that would go crazy, dude. Man, I should be like a American like military defense strategist, dude. I come up with some good ideas. Like, hey, why don't we just like ambush his ass while he's on a plane or a helicopter in the middle of like Siberia? Russia's big, you know. We could probably sneak in there.
By them and Israel's other enemies for decades to come. Now, that's part of it. The other part is all the physical and other testimony by U.S. officials, let's say USAID, by international aid organizations, the UN and all the others, by the very fact that the United States has had to build some pier on the side of Gaza and some countries have had to drop aid in, that the demand for aid goes.
What if the U.S. just decided we're going nuclear on Russia? This is how we take out Putin. All right, every scientist on the ISS, you're coming home on a very quick notice. Get in a descent pod, and they get into their pod, and they go. And then, like, remotely, they pilot the ISS, like, trajectory-wise to, like, perfectly crash into Putin's, like, front door, basically, of his big-ass, like, palace estate, whatever. And whenever he's on, like, the front lawn giving a speech to the people, like some address or something, I'm sure Putin does that, we just drop a satellite on his ass. Like, the closest thing we have to rods from God is a whole-ass space station. We just sacrifice that, like, $100 billion, $2 trillion space station, drop it on Putin's head. You think it's heavy enough to, like, wipe out his entire, like, capital fortress he's got in Moscow? I wonder.
Going in is not happening, and this is the basis of the majority of the case against Israel at the moment, that this is, no matter...
Yeah, no, what we need is, like, a mirror on the ISS that specifically captures, like, a dangerous amount of sunlight and uses computer-guided laser systems to just constantly focus a magnified UV ray from the sun onto wherever Putin is whenever possible. Like, at least 8 times a day for, like, 20 minutes, Putin gets blasted if he's in the open with, like, deadly UV cancer rays. Like burning ants, but from space. Project Anthill? Was that a thing? Was that a thing? Did I just on my own invent some like evil secret American project they tried to do? Because that's an idea right there. A space magnifying glass. Archimedes from New Vegas, literally Archimedes from New Vegas, but much slower and more. It just gives you cancer. It'd be a cancer gun.
As he explained, Israel, of course, has the right under any statute to defend itself from attack, but has to protect civilians. And this is something the United States has been calling for from the very beginning, as well as many, many others of Israel's allies. So they believe that that has not been adhered to, that aid has not gone in, that famine in enough bulk, that famine is there in some parts, and that there have been deaths by starvation and malnutrition related diseases. Now, and they've had many conversations, the prosecutor tells me, with officials inside Israel on this. Now, on the other side, regarding Hamas, the prosecutor has been to the areas inside Israel which were attacked by Hamas, the kibbutzim, the site of the rave party, the Nova party. He has been there, he's talked to people, talked about and to hostage families, and he also...
If Netanyahu gets the ICC arrest warrant, he cannot leave Israel without getting arrested. They tri-X that in the 1970s. They tried that in the 1970s. Yeah, when you think about what country it is, like if you got a warrant for your arrest, you're effectively locked in your country. Because like if you're surrounded by countries where the airspace is like friendly to the guys who are coming to get your ass, if you go, they're gonna come get your ass, right? Like, if Netanyahu gets that warrant, like, there's nowhere around Israel he can fly that won't immediately allow, like, jets to grab his ass, right? Like, sure, yeah, Israel's isolated. Like, he has to fly over, like, so much area that cannot, like, prevent, like, UN air traffic from reaching him, you know? Like, bro would be fucked if he tried to escape Israel. Space lasers from solar light was tried in the 1970s. Damn! Listen, guys, one day I'll come up with the next, like, TNT or nuclear bomb. I will be the next... I'm moving like Oppenheimer, okay? I will be the next Oppenheimer. I will create an invention that changes the face of the planet, and humanity will look back at me as either a genius or a monster.
So has seen the evidence that was on all sorts of videos, all sorts of body cams that has been provided, certainly in the public domain, but also by the Israeli government regarding the crimes committed by Hamas on October the 7th. So they have that amount of evidence that has been sufficient, they say, for this round of arrest warrants and charges. And they say that they will continue to investigate, and this may not be the end of it. So let's just again, sum up. On the Hamas side, Yahya Sinwar, the head of Hamas, mostly military. Mohammed al-Masri, who's better known as Mohammed Deif, his deputy, head of the military wing of Hamas, the Al-Qassam brigades, and Ismail Haniyeh, the head of political arm of Hamas, who frankly is involved in negotiations currently, indirect negotiations between Hamas and Israel regarding the release of Israeli hostages and the capture of Israeli hostages. The sexual offenses and violations and rapes by Hamas also form part of these crimes against humanity that are being sought on arrest warrants for Hamas.
Fuck, man. That's some big news, bro. If they get Netanyahu, that's some good fucking news. That's big. Just getting that fucking warrant. He's fucked. He's locked in Israel. He can't leave. It's isolated. There's no friendly airspace he could try to, like, work his way through on the long way to find, like, to avoid it getting caught. Like, if they get a warrant for Netanyahu, he's trapped in Israel, or they get him the second he tries to leave. So fuck, man. That's huge. That's actually massive. I really hope they get that application for a warrant approved. I really worry they won't. Like, the nothing ever happens part of me wants to say they don't get a warrant approved. That, like, the easy decision of approving the warrant for the Hamas leaders, sure. But Israel, though, man, there's just a surprising amount of charitability towards Israel. It just sucks because the U.S. probably isn't going to want to set the precedent of arresting sitting heads of state. Really? You think the U.S. doesn't want to set that precedent? Frankly, at this point, it might be something Biden starts to look at supporting. He might, like, honestly, if Biden starts hardballing Netanyahu with the, like, threat of backing the ICC on this, that could be really interesting. That could be a really interesting way for the U.S. to swing its dick around in this situation. Who knows, though? Who knows? I can't really... I don't actually have the ability to predict the future. We just kind of have to wait and see. But this is exciting news. I'm curious to see if justice will be had. Silver lining in all of this could be that consequences and accountability are made and taken. So, let's hope. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like, by the way. No matter when, where, or what you're watching, leaving a like or a thumbs up boosts my channel in the algorithm. YouTube is forced to boost my channel in the algorithm, I should say, and thus more people are able to come to my channel and discover my content, and it grows me and helps me out a lot, and I really do appreciate it. Don't forget to comment down below for the same effect, not to mention I like reading your messages, and don't forget to sub and ring the bell icon so YouTube actually tells you when I go live or upload a new video. And follow my social medias, linked down below if you want to see more from me on other platforms. And don't forget, if you want to support me financially, which I really do appreciate, it helps to keep the, food on the table and the lights on, you can do so by supporting me financially through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, Patreon, buying merch, or donating subbing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live. Regardless, though, no matter how you support me, I really do appreciate it. And don't forget, down below in the description is the link to my fan Discord. It's totally free, and it is the main hub of my fan base. I do watch parties, call-in streams, and game events there, as well as announcing all my streams and uploads there as well. So if you haven't already joined and you aren't already part of that, I really do hope to see you there. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you again. Thank you for watching.